So we're going to pick up with verse 26. Jesus says this, "So have no fear of them, for nothing is covered that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be known. What I tell you in the dark, say in the light. And what you hear whispered, proclaim on the housetops. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father. So everyone who acknowledges me before men, I also will acknowledge before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, I also will deny before my Father who is in heaven." So notice here, Jesus, first of all, is telling his disciples, do not be afraid. Right? Do not be afraid. I mean, that's something that all of us, we need to hear very clearly, right? Do not be afraid, because there's all kinds of things that may cause us fear. Well, Jesus is telling his disciples to have no fear of their opponents. As they embark on their mission, they will face opposition. Now, it's understandable if they're fearful, because if I can remind us of some of the things we saw last week, Jesus told his disciples some things that would cause fear. In fact, if your Bible's open, if you look back at verse 17, Jesus says, "Beware of men, for they will deliver you over to courts and flog you in their synagogues. And you will be dragged before governors and kings for my sake, to bear witness before them and the Gentiles." Jesus is warning them about what's going to happen. Verse 21 and 22, he says, "Brother will deliver brother over to death, and the father his child. And children will rise against parents and have them put to death, and you will be hated by all for my name's sake." So here Jesus is talking about them being flogged. He's talking about them being dragged before governors and kings. He's talking about them being hated by all for the sake of Jesus. I mean, here Jesus has warned them, so it's understandable if there might be some fear in them. Now, as a church, the last mission trip we took was to Guatemala. I've had the opportunity on 3 times to go to Guatemala on a mission trip. And we don't have one scheduled, but I suspect the next mission trip that we go on as a church is probably going to be back to Guatemala. Now, just imagine for a moment if, as we were advertising for this mission opportunity, this trip to Guatemala, imagine, if you will, if we were to say beforehand, "Now listen, guys, it's going to be really rough. You might get flogged. You might get beaten. You're going to be hated by those that you're trying to minister to. You're going to be hated by those that you're trying to share the gospel to. In fact, it may not end so well for you." How many of you are saying, "Sign me up for that"? I mean, we really have to work, I bet, to get many people to go. We'd have to find somebody to lead the team, first of all. Right? I mean, here Jesus has told them what's going to happen. You're going to be flogged. You're going to be hated by all. I mean, this isn't a no-risk mission. So it's understandable if there might be some fear. It's understandable if there could be some hesitation. Jesus says, have no fear of them. I had lunch with someone this past week. They'd reached out to me. And they told me about a trip that they were going to be taking soon to do ministry in another part of the world. Sounded risky and dangerous. Not the kind of mission trip that we would likely sign up for. But here Jesus is saying, Have no fear. Now, why should they not fear their opponents? Why should they not be fearful at the prospect of dealing with the kinds of things that Jesus has told them are going to happen? Well, I want to share with you 3 reasons. And here's the first one. God is going to expose everything. God is going to expose. Notice what Jesus says. So have no fear, for nothing is covered that will not be revealed, or hidden that will not be. So Jesus is saying to his disciples, don't fear your because everything will be made. Now you may, how is this a reason not to be fearful? How does things being known provide a reason not to be afraid? Well, perhaps the idea here is that everything anyone does is known by God and will be revealed by God. Nothing will remain secret. The actions of opponents will not be hidden. God will expose their evil deeds. In Luke chapter says this, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Nothing is covered up, will not be revealed, or hidden, it will not. Therefore, what you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light, and what you have whispered proclaimed on the house. Now, leaven, but isn't seen. And Jesus says the leaven of is hypocrisy. It will be revealed. It will be seen. I mean, there is nothing that has been said that God is unaware of. Right? There's nothing that the Pharisees have said that God is unaware of. There is nothing that the opponents of Jesus have said that Jesus or God is unaware of. There's nothing that any one of us have ever said that God is unaware of. There is nothing that is done that God is unaware of. God knows all secrets. God knows all motives of all people. Now, there are many things that I don't know. There are lots of things that you don't know. I mean, there's things happening in our world that we don't know about. Right? Undoubtedly, there's things going on in our families that we don't fully understand. I mean, even in this church, I mean, I don't have omniscience. There's things happening in our church that I don't know about. Like, we don't know everything. And yet, God knows. He knows every secret, everything. Fear of them. Don't fear them because nothing is covered that will be revealed or hidden that will not be known. So God's going to expose everything. Not to be fair. Can harm our soul except God. So verse 28, Jesus says this, and do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, fear him who can destroy both soul and body in hell. Now, do you have any fears of things that could kill you? I'm not just talking about people. I'm just saying, like in general, do you have fears of things that could kill you? I heard people recently talk about jumping out of an airplane, skydiving. I've got 3 words for that. No, thank you. Like, I have absolutely no interest in that whatsoever. Now, I get it. Thrill seekers, that's like, that might be it, right? You something like that. I don't want to do something like that. Put me on a roller coaster, great. I'll do that. That's fine. But I'm not jumping out of an airplane, right? Because, I mean, your altitude and your parachute doesn't open up, you hit the ground, and guess what? You are no more. You're dead. Right? Maybe you have a fear of things. Maybe you fear sharks. Right? I mean, we live in the shark bite capital of the world, right? And so you're like, I'm afraid to go out in the ocean. I'm not afraid of that. I'm not worried about that. I can't see what's below the surface of that water, and I know that's where they live, right? When I go out there, I know, I don't always consciously have it in my mind, but I just know. So, of that, right? Maybe you're afraid of something else. Maybe you're afraid of bears, right? I had this experience with my family last year. We went on vacation with Rachel. This is an annual thing that we do, and we went up to Pigeon Forge. Some of us, not all of us, but some of us went on a hike, and I don't know if I told this story or not to you, but anyways, I'm going to tell you again. But we went on a hike, some of us, my wife, and we were hiking the falls, all right, Rainbow Falls, and in the falls, we had this experience. That was cool. Now, it was kind of like, I actually have a video of this. But, I mean, this was a cool experience. But I'll tell you, my reaction to the experience and Rachel's reaction to the experience are very, very different. I was pretty cool about it. I thought, okay, this is kind of cool. I was like, okay, let's back up, right? Let's back up. In fact, my niece was with us on the trail, so I'm like, hey, back up. So I'm saying, let's back up, right? Let's space. The baby bear kind of comes toward us, not like coming after us, but it was coming toward us, and we're backing up, and it goes off on its own, and I'm like, okay, keep going. Ahead of, we're going to this is cool, we're having fun. Rachel's reaction was very different. She's like, no, we got to get out of here. I'm like, no, let's keep going. The bear's going. You don't go. I guess Mama Bear was in her mind. Right? She's probably thinking, Mama Bear, right? If Baby Bear's there, then Mama Bear's got to be somewhere in the vicinity. Things that can end our lives, don't we? And if a bear wanted to, not the baby bear, but Mama Bear, if the Mama Bear wanted to end our life, Mama Bear could do that. Jesus says, have no fear of those who kill the body. Now, let's be clear. Jesus isn't talking about the possibility of shark attacks or bear attacks. He's talking about people. He's talking about the opponents of his disciples. And what he's saying to his disciples is, don't fear those who can kill the body. Because listen to what he says. That's all they can do. He says, do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. They can't kill the soul. Only God can destroy body and soul, right? So you might get killed by an animal, but that animal can kill your body but can't kill your soul. You may be killed by a person, by an enemy, but that enemy can't do more than kill your body. They can't harm your soul. So people may oppose them. People may threaten them. They may flog them and beat them severely. They may imprison them. They may execute them. But they're not to be afraid of people who can only kill the body. The one we are to fear is God. Okay, so God's going to expose everything. No one can harm our soul except God. Here's the third reason not to be afraid. Nothing will happen to us outside of God's will. Pick up with me at verse 29. Jesus asks a question. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a penny? And not one of them will fall to the ground apart from your Father.